thing in today's lesson, section 12.1. Limits are y values. There's a certain notation that they use with limits. And when you look at this stuff, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. So down below here, you'll see this x, where it says limit, parentheses, x minus 1, parentheses, and then down below the lim, which stands for limit. You'll see x and then an arrow and then a 4. And what that means is your x values are approaching the number 4. And what you're searching for is what is my y value when that's occurring. Now the interesting thing about limits is that you don't even actually have to have a y value that exists. As long as you're getting really close to that y value as you approach 4, both from the left-hand side on the x-axis and the right-hand side. So a number that's really close to 4, to the left of 4, is 3.9. And that's why you see a 3.9 here. If I were to plug in 3.9 up in the x value, 3.9 minus 1? 2.9. If I were to plug in 3.99 for the x value, I get 2.99. If I were to come in from the other side, and I were to plug in 4.1, this is now approaching from the right-hand side on the x-axis. 4.1 minus 1 is 3.1. If I were to plug in 4.01, I would get 3.01. And if I were to plug in 4.001, I would get 3.001. And the big question is, what's the y value when I get to 4? Now the funny thing is, even if you got an error on your calculator, you could still tell me what you think you're getting really close to just by looking at what's happening on either side. What are you getting really close to? 3. And so actually if we plug in a 4, we do get a 3 in this case. But even if I didn't, even if my calculator said error, it wouldn't matter. Because from the left side and from the right side, I am approaching the y value of 3. In the next problem, I'm actually going to use my calculator to talk about what's going on. And then I'm going to show you algebraically how I do it. You can leave your calculators put away. So in my calculator, if I go to my y equals, and I type in parentheses, was it x squared minus 4? Oh, I almost did it. So I have x squared minus 4 divided by x minus 2. I think that's the one that they wanted. And I'm going to go to my table. What is the x value that I'm interested in? Which one? 2. How do you know that? It says x is approaching 2. The arrow is pointing at the 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the number 2 in to my table start. That's where I'm going to start. And what I want to know is what's happening really, really close to the number 2. And I think if you're within 1/1000th, that's pretty close. So I'm going to go up by 0.001 in my table. And then I'm going to go look at my table and see what's happening. Let's go look. So here's my table. And what I want you to notice is when the x value is 1.997, my y value is 3.997. When my x value is 1.998, which means I'm getting closer to 2, my y value is 3.998. When I'm an x value of 1.999, my y value is 3.999. What happens when I get to 2?
Error.
There's an error. Ooh, I don't know what that means. When I'm at 2.01, I notice that my y value is 4.01. When I'm at 2.002, it's 4.002. So even though I don't have a value when I get to 2, what number should it be? 4. Because I'm really close to 4 when I'm under 2, and I'm really close to 4 when I'm over 2. So the limit as I approach 2 is 4. So when I go back to my notes over here, I think these numbers were, I have no idea what those numbers were, but we did different values in here, and the answer is going to be, what was it? 4. Now why is this? Well, if I were to look at the information that I see right here, and I were to rewrite that in factored format, you would see the following. And I notice that on the top and the bottom, that these two things are canceling out. On the desk is fine, thank you. And so as I notice these things are canceling out, what's really going on is I have a function that's talking about something that acts like x plus 2. Now why did my calculator spit out error when I shoved in a 2? Nope. So in this problem, because you're dividing by 0 when you plug in a 2, your calculator is not going to spit out a value. But knowing that I have a hole at x equals 2, because we talked about that way back in chapter 2, I know that now this thing really acts like the line x plus 2, and if I were to shove in an x value of 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. And that's why I'm getting a limit, which is, remember, a y value. My limit is 4. So as I approach 2 on the x-axis, I get a 4. If visually you'd like to see what's going on, this is what's happening. I have a line. Except at x equal to 2 and y equal to 4, there's a hole there. That's what's going on. So for most of the stuff in limits, if you can use your calculator, use it. Don't be foolish. Okay? What that means is, whatever you see as the stuff that comes after the word LIM, which stands for limit, take that stuff and put it in your y equals. Then, the number that you see down below here, that 2 thing is going to be where your table start is. And I want you in our class to always have a change equal to 0.001 in your table, just like I demonstrated on the last problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take that yellow junk, put it in my y equals, and then I'm going to go to my table start with 2 because that's what x is approaching, and I'm going to go up by 0.001. Here I go. In my calculator, y equals, there is a numerator, which means I need a parentheses, of x minus 2. There's a denominator, so I need another parentheses. And it is the square root of x plus 2, does it say? Minus the square root of x. So now I go into my table set. Where am I going to start? No, I'm going to start at 2. I'm going to go up by 0.001. And then I'm going to go look at my table. Here I am in my table. So I'm in my table. And as I come from the left side of 2, which means numbers that are less than 2, like 1.997, I look at my limit. Limits are y values. Now I'm looking at the y values. 0.0051 negative, 0.0034 negative, 0.0017 negative. All getting closer to? 0. Then I go to 2.003 and I see 0.005, then 0.003, then 0.001. Again, getting closer to? 0. What's my limit? 0. So the answer to this problem is that my limit is equal to 0. If you were to actually look at the graph back from your calculator, down below here you see what it looks like. As I get closer and closer to 2, my y value is 0. So I could just draw that if I wanted to, I suppose. Look something like this. And the limit I'm talking about is the y value. So if you look at that purple dot on the blue graph, the y value there is 0. Okay, so in the cosine, from way back when, you might recall that our period was 2 pi and our amplitude was 1. And if you're drawing the cosine, I always split mine into 4 pieces. Here is pi, pi over 2, whatever. And so as you graph this thing, it looked like this. Remember these? You guys did such a good job on graphing these, I don't know if you remember, but you guys are kind of experts on them. And so as you look at that, the place that you're looking is at pi. So I'm looking right here. And as I look coming in from the left-hand side, if you put your pencils down, it's usually easier to understand. As I come in from the left, and I follow this graph around, my y values are getting closer and closer to -1. Y values. And as I come in from the right-hand side of the graph, the number's bigger than pi for the x values, and I trace the graph, my y values are getting closer and closer to -1. So the answer is that my limit is -1. That's the y value that I get closer to as my x value gets closer and closer to pi. In this next section, there are some places where limits don't exist and reasons why. There are 3 main kinds. Let's look at letter A. In letter A, if I were to graph this function, and you can try it on your calculator some other time, here's what you would see. You would see the function that looks like the following. In this function, if I look at what's going on from the left-hand side, so here I am, I put my finger on the red graph on the left-hand side, and I come closer and closer and closer to the x value of 1, because the limit says that my x value is approaching 1. You guys see that down below? Right here, x is approaching 1. As I get closer and closer to that 1, what's my y value? Louder. -1. As I come in from the right-hand side, closer and closer to the x value of 1, what's